So it's lesson 11, part 3. And what I'm going to do in this part of the video is take the unit tests that you guys wrote in groups, and I'm going to add those into my music store project. And then when I'm done, I will post all of this code to GitHub. So I'm going to go back, kind of see where we're at, what we did together. I'll just run all of my tests. So right now we have 7 tests in our albums controller, all of which are passing. And we've re-enabled all the code in our controller. We've replaced some of the scaffolded code in our methods. So we're going to start with the get edit method. So here we look up an album. We have 3 possibilities. We have no ID. We return an error. We have an ID, but our album is not found. Or we find the album, in which case we need to populate the artist and genre, as well as load the edit view. So we walk through these changes in the controller in class. So we're going to go to the unit tests. So I'm actually going to do, because our unit test controller is going to get really long, we can actually create these regions. So that will make it collapsible. Just let's organize our code a little better. These are all our tests for get. Edit. And write all my tests here. Our first test at no ID. Here we're going to act. Pass in a null. We expect to get our It's interesting. So what this is saying is, which one of these are we passing? Are we passing an integer for get, or are we passing an album object, which is our post? So we're going to have to actually arrange something else, because notice we can see our int parameter is optional. So we're going to arrange an optional integer. Now if we pass this, and our code knows we are calling the version of edit that takes an integer. Okay. So we'll run this test. If it passes, move on to our next test. We're going to keep it inside of the same region. So again, this region is going to be all our code for get and edit. Our next test. We want to test when we have an ID, but that value is not valid. Then we should get, an error. We're cast our return type as a view result. We're going to pass in some value that we know doesn't exist in our mock data. In this case, our assertion is the same as the assertion above. That we expect a view, the name, error. There's our second test. So we're going to basically, we should get the same result if we have no ID or an invalid ID. those are the two behaviors we're expecting in our controller. We'll run this test. So we're up to 9 passing tests. Now, we've got 3 things that are going to happen when we have a valid album ID. We've got to check the artist ID in the view bag. We've got to check the genre ID in the view bag. And we're checking that we've passed in an album. So we're going to write 3 tests for this. But you don't have to follow these naming conventions. I'm just using the same method names that you guys provided for your lab. Our next one is going to be the view bag artist. And we're just going to check that this is not null. And album IDs in our mock data, they're 100, 200, 300. So if we pass in a valid ID, we're going to check now in the test that was submitted for the lab. We're just checking that we got a view result. That's okay. It does make sure we get a view back, but we actually want to check here is not that we get a view. We want to check. We're trying to check whether there's anything in the artist ID. So instead, I'm going to modify this. But we want to check that this artist ID property of the view bag is not null. And we have a list of artists here. I'm just making a slight modification to the unit test that was submitted. Our test passes. So when we pass in 100, we do get back artist ID and artist ID property in the view bag. I'm going to do the exact same test on the genres. So this time we're testing the genre, passing in again a valid ID. This time, rather than checking the view bag for the artist ID, we're going to check the view bag for the genre ID. Test. We're up to 11 passing tests. And now we just need one more test to verify that we actually get an album returned when we pass in a valid ID. We can call this one. Now we could check that the view loads. Actually, we'll write 2 tests here. Edit view loads. Do the same action as in our previous test. We'll call edit method and pass in an ID of 100. We'll assert that we get the view name called. We've kind of used different variables here for actual or result. You can use either one. So if we pass in a valid ID, we should get the edit view loading. And then this test. I'm going to write one more test that's similar. Copy. I'm going to say edit loads album. In this case, rather than the view result, I'm actually interested in the model. What we want is an album. And cast this entire thing as an album. model. So we call edit the model that should come back as a single album. And in this case, we're going to assert that what we get back. Sorry, I guess we want to show it this way. Equal. So we expect album 0, the ID 100 is the first album in our mock data. So we're going to check if we pass in 100, we should get this album returned back. We'll run that test. Which also passes. So we've got 6 unit tests in this area, 6 tests for albums get. No ID, invalid ID, the 2 view bag values, loads the correct view with a valid ID, and also loads the correct object with a valid ID. I'm just going to do a quick test of my code coverage. We'll see with these tests, the 13 tests we have, where we're at. So we're at 42% in our controller, but our edit get method is now at 100%, which is great. We've covered all of these code blocks. Okay, now we're going to look at the the create get method. Just close this up. I'm going to add a new region here. I'm just doing these in the order that they were submitted. Labs. This is going to be get. Okay. Again, the naming conventions between the tests are going to be a little inconsistent because I'm using the names that you guys submitted. So in your own controller, probably a good idea to name these consistently. For example, edit view loads. We might want create view loads. I would recommend that you name your tests. I'll maybe do that. Our create method, parameters. We get back a view name called create. So our first test passes. We're checking if the artists are loaded. We're going to do the same act. I'm going to call the create method. And we'll make sure that the view bag result dot viewbag artist ID is not null. So really the same check we've written on the edit. In both cases, both views have a dropdown. That dropdown has one dropdown for artist that's in the where the data is in the view bag and one for genre. So we want both of these. So I'm just going to copy and write my second test for the genres. So this will be. Now, these names aren't quite descriptive enough because we're doing this same process on both create and edit. So I'm just going to rename these. On edit, we called them edit view bag genre. So I'm going to change these. So this is going to be view bag genre. Create view bag artist. Now we know which one of these tests are for the create and which of these are for edit. I should just run all my tests. Okay, everything's passing. So that region is done. So our album's create has got 3 unit tests. Our view loads, and that we have the correct values in the view bag. Whoops, and this should be. Barrels of copying and pasting. So only 3 unit tests needed for this. So we've got our get for create, we have our get for edit. Okay, so now we'll do our get methods for our tests for delete. If we look at our delete method, we've got 3 scenarios. Again, no ID, an ID that doesn't match, and lastly, a matching ID. Our album's controller. First test will be no ID. The result is a view result. We pass in a null. We should get taken to the data page. If ID is null, we're returning the error view. Do the same thing if we have an ID, but the album is not found. I'll just next test. Here we have a delete with an invalid ID. So I'll just put in an ID we know doesn't exist. And again, we should get our error. We can run or not run tests, so that'll run our 2 new tests. which both pass. And now we do need a test, which I don't actually see in the lab submissions. I need to write what happens when we have a valid. $100, which exists in my model data. In this case, we should be loading the delete view and also passing it that album. So I'm actually going to modify this test a bit more to say delete valid ID loads view. We also want to check that it loads the correct album in this case. So we actually want one other unit test here. The valid ID loads album. In this case, we need to access the model. And instead, what we're checking are equal to albums 0 result. Not only are we loading the proper view called delete, but we're actually loading the right album so we can show the user a message, are you sure you want to delete? I'll run all my tests, which pass. We can check our code coverage again. So we've done our 3 get methods here. We've done the delete, the edit, and the create. And our albums controller, we're up to 64% now. So there's our get, edit, and our get delete. So all of these are 100%, or at 64% total. So now we're going to start on our post unit tests. Okay, so we're going to do our post. Let's go to our method for a minute. We can look at our post. So we need to check if our model state is valid, we're going to save and redirect. If our model state is not valid, we need to again check the view bag, artist, and genre, as well as that our edit view loads and loads the correct album. This is our successful scenario. If our save works correctly, we will get a redirect to root result. We can just pass in any one of our albums. And we're asserting we get taken to the index view, and we get this in a strange way from result root values. In here, there's an action E. So what is the name of the method or action that we're calling in our redirect? Well, we're calling index after save loads. We already have a method with this name. Okay, whoops, just take that out. I already put that code in, but you don't have it in yours. Okay. So this is a successful save. We now need to check possibilities of an unsuccessful save. So if we don't save successfully, we need to reload our drop-down list of artists, and then the same for genres. I'm going to do a range here first. Create another album. Program, we're going to set the model state. We're going to create a model. There's our arrange. We connect. Pass in the album. Then we're going to check view bag. This ID, not null. So we're adding this, we're manually setting the model state to invalid. So instead of saving our code carries down to reload our dropdown. We'll run those. And now we need the same test for the view bag genre. I'm going to copy, do a find and replace here. I highlight, click find and replace. I can replace artist in this section, genre, in this selection of code. So now we're checking the genre view bag under the same conditions. Test passes. And now we also want to check these two things, that it loads the view called edit and loads the current album. So the user, if the user's editing and they make a mistake, the page reloads, but we keep them looking at the same album. Got my region tags a bit messed up. The nice thing about the regions is you can open and close them. So actually, if I put my comments above the region, now that I think about it, and I can see all of the code related to this section in here. I'll just put my comments above the region sections. That way, if I can track them, you can see all the methods for each area. Just clean this up a little bit. Now my code is neatly kind of organized. Here's my. Okay, so we're back in our edit. We need to do 2 more tests here. To make sure the edit reloads. For edit post invalid. We'll check we're loading the correct view. So I'm going to copy the arrange and act from the previous test, putting in an ID, a different ID, and a model error we call edit. Now we just want to insert our result view name is edit, so we're staying on the same view. Our last test, we're going to have to check the model to make sure that our current album is loaded. Copy. I'll load view. And load album. In this case, I will put in actually a proper ID. That object can be returned. And in this case, we're checking the we get back as the album. We're going to check the model. And in this case, I want to check, for example, if this is my albums 1 equal to my result. We'll run those. We've got 2 albums. Maybe I have the wrong ID. Maybe I'll Try 100 and albums. We'll run that test again. Okay, so it's not giving me the same album. We want to make sure the album we pass in is the album sitting in the model. So I'm going to pass it. So we'll use this album. We pass that in. That's what should come out. So we're at 75% now. We just need our create and delete confirmed. And then we'll have everything except our database constructor covered. So we'll do create next. Our first test. We have a valid album. Where we need to do an arrange. We'll create a new album. New artist. We're creating a new album. We're going to redirect result in this case. We'll pass in our new album. And we'll assert that we are redirected to index. We've used this before. We should be redirected to the action called index. This one. Need to check if our album is invalid. We'll just create an empty album. And we'll one thing we need to do first is create a name. put it into the invalid right here. And if our album is invalid, we are staying on the create view. We're going to show the user the error and keep them there. So in our create post method, tested this. We're now testing that we get the create view load. Then we're going to check the view bag again. So now if we have an invalid album, we need to check the artist list and genre list. I'm going to copy this, paste first to the same. We'll say create invalid view bag artist. We've already gotten edit post view bag artist. So fairly descriptive name. We've got a model error. We get a view result back. And this time we want to check. View bag V is not null. And then we can do the same for genres. In this case, we're checking that the genre ID is not null. Okay, so now we just, I believe, have our delete to do. Check our code coverage one more time. We'll see where we're at with our albums controller. Yep, so we're at 100%. So we're up to 90%. The only things we don't have covered are this constructor and our delete confirmed. We're going to cover the 20 blocks in our delete confirmed. And then we will be, should be close to 95%. Just going to pause for just 1 second. Okay, so let's do our delete. Our first test. We have no ID. In this case, we expect to get taken to the error page. Notice we're getting an error here, telling us we can't pass in a null, so what can we do? We can generate a new method. We don't want to do that. So let's go to our delete confirmed. And if we just make this an optional parameter, adding a question mark, this will allow us to pass in a null. In this case, we're just making sure that the error view loads. That's what happens when we have no ID. Again, if we have an ID, but the album isn't found, we return an error. Our last scenario is our delete works, and we redirect to index. We just have two more tests. I'm going to copy this test. We'll have delete confirmed invalid ID. Again, we should get the error if we call delete confirmed with an invalid ID. Last test. Delete confirmed. We could call it valid ID, correct album, we'll call it valid ID. The naming is sort of consistent. In this case, we have a redirect root result. Here, if I pass in an ID that exists, like 100, and check the result of root values is equal to index. We'll just run all our tests again. They all pass. We've done 35 tests. So 31 in our albums controller. So we're going to check our code coverage, and then we're going to go back and log back into our store and make sure we haven't broken anything in the web application with our code refactor. That one controller actually, by unit testing it, it actually gives us over a quarter coverage. And now our albums controller, we're at 98.7%. So the only thing that's not at 100 is our database, is our default constructor that connects to the database. We're at fully 100% on all our methods. If we turn on the code coverage, we can see everything is blue in Everything is blue in our controller with the exception of our database constructor. Everything else we have unit tested. It actually shows the code hinting here as well. I'm not sure why this one is yellow. So for your assignment, you'll need to write somewhere between 24 and 30 unit tests for one of your controllers. Now, we have two drop downs here, so we've had to write on both edit and create, we've had to write view bag checks for both artist and genre. You probably won't have this in your assignment, which should reduce the number of unit tests a little bit. But you do need to write your own tests. If you just copy this and all the method names are the same and you've just done a find and replace, I'm going to know. So use this code as a guide. I'm going to post it to GitHub now, but you do need to write your own unit test, use your own ID values, use your own error messages. Don't just copy and paste all of my code. You do need the experience of writing the unit tests yourself.